Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, May 26, 2026 meeting of the Lewis and Clark County Commission. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Take a minute here and introduce those of us on this end of the room. Start with Brandy Grandy, who is keeping track of all of our proceedings. She's our recording secretary, and she'll get it up on our website, the information and the recording as soon as possible. Commissioner Andy Hunthausen, Commissioner Candace Payne to my right. I'm Commissioner Tom Rolfe, chair of the commission this year. We've got Frank Cornwell from our chief financial officer, who's going to have to answer lots of questions today. TJ Murphy representing the county attorney's office to keep us on the straight and narrow. Roger Baltz, our chief administrative officer. We ask that everyone sign in at the sign-in sheet, leaving a contact information for us in case we need to reach you. And then there's also an agenda there. Today's meetings are all about budgets and how we're going to spend the taxpayers' money this coming fiscal year. Mr. Baltz, do you want to start us off?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, good morning, commissioners. As our chair just said, the next 3 days you're going to be getting several budget presentations. Commissioners, all of you have been through this process before, but just very briefly, you'll get your presentations today, Wednesday, and Thursday. It's an opportunity for you to hear about these budgets, ask whatever questions you have. After you get your presentations, there will be what we call budget request review, which will occur after that. That will occur in early June. We will have a meeting with you. It'll be a public meeting. And any of the items that are new requests, what we will be doing is we'll be going through Mr. Cornwell. Frank Cornwell does a cash flow process where he takes a look at all of our revenues, all of the requested expenditures, and then we come back to you with a list of any new or unusual items for you to either approve or deny, but that will happen after all of these presentations this week. The other thing I thought I would mention to you as we get going this morning is just a reminder that Frank sent out a budget message. It's usually sent out in January or early February, where a message was sent out to all of our departments and all of our elected officials with your message of budget preparation. So that message this year was similar to past years. It requested everyone to take a good look at the programs and services we're providing, maintain the status quo where we could, but also asked all of our departments and elected officials to factor in what we refer to as fixed cost, which are insurance rates, intergovernmental transfers that we have to do on a regular basis, that type of thing. We established a COLA based on the Consumer Price Index of 2.7%. And so that message went out as everyone prepared their budgets for you, which you're going to be seeing over the next 3 days. So thank you, commissioners. And if you don't mind, I would just ask Frank if he has any comments for you today as well.
Thank you, Roger. Just a couple of things just to reiterate what Roger was saying. Remember, we are tracking all of the new requests and anything special that you want to have a special eye on. We will bring that to you in another meeting. So I will be taking notes and I will be compiling that. So don't worry. We're in the middle of things and you feel like you want to make a decision or indicate which direction you're going. This isn't the time for that. We can listen to it, ask questions, learn about what the intent of those new items are, and then we'll have that discussion later. And also, You'll notice with all these budgets, there was a significant increase in insurance cost. And that is something to just point out that that's something that's out of our control. Claims are up. Our health insurance pool is needing that additional revenue, unfortunately. So those insurance costs have gone up. That is something you'll see across the board of all of these budgets. So just want to point that out. And yeah, that'll be it.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that introduction. Any questions from the commission at this point? Well, let's go right into it. We're going to start out with our first conversation about the Grants and Purchasing Department.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commission. Ann McCauley, Director of the Grants and Procurement Department. And I want to introduce that I have two of our staff members here today, Casey Hayes, our Procurement Officer, and Eliza Fiaschetti, our ARPA and Grant Specialist position. Randy, do you mind turning on the top screen? So just to give a high-level overview of our department, the mission of the Grants and Procurement Department is to support county offices and departments with all aspects of their grant and financial assistance awards, procurement and contracting activities, and ensure compliance with applicable laws, regulation, and established policies and procedures. As you're well aware, there is a lot on the federal side for grants and financial assistance, Code of Federal Regulations that govern a lot of what we do with those awards, falls all the way through to our HR policies, our finance and accounting policies, pretty much everything we do with those funds. And then on the procurement side, we're largely governed by Montana Code Annotated and the requirements that are set forth in county code for contracts and procurement. So just a very high level of some of our 2026, FY26 accomplishments. Going back nearly a year ago, we did update our name. So we moved from the Grants and Purchasing Department to Procurement, and that was to better reflect the actual activities that are being done in the department. This also coincided with a position name change and position description update for Casey Hayes' Procurement Officer position. Administration of over $17.5 million in COVID state and local fiscal recovery funding. So that $17.5 million is the direct allocation of ARPA funds, our minimum allocation that we receive through the state, as well as the local assistance and consistency tribal funds, the LATCF funding that we also received that was part of that COVID-19 recovery funds. We were awarded and have been successfully implementing over $450,000 in community development block grant programming for the communities of Craig and Lincoln, and assisted several small and large solicitations, including 35 formal solicitations. These would be our requests for proposals, requests for qualifications, and invitation for bids, and over 120 contracts in FY26. Looking forward, again, just at a very high level for FY27, implementation of our grant and financial assistance policy and subrecipient policies that will be coming forward to you in a few weeks. Continued coordination with staff on trainings for grants, subawards, procurement, and contracts. Our scheduled review of the procurement policy, that is for spring 2027. So in that procurement policy and actually in the upcoming grants and subrecipient policy, we have in there that we'll do a 3-year review on a schedule. So we make sure that those policies stay consistent, up to date, capture any new changes that might happen. Continuing to look forward to securing funding for the Lincoln Public Safety and Emergency Operations Center. That is a project that is currently in the planning phase. And then continuing to coordinate with the Fairgrounds on their new playground project. And hence my first slide. I've been spending some enjoyable time at the Fairgrounds the last few months with Eliza as well. So to jump into our budget, there's 2 parts of the grants and procurement budget. I'll start with the general fund. This is the budget that supports my position and the procurement officer position. There's not a lot new things in here. It reflects the updates and the FY27 recommendations that Frank and Roger went over. I'll draw your eye to two lines that have a slight increase. Increased subscriptions, so line 2022. That was increased by $500 from the FY26 budget. This is to accommodate our subscription with Amazon Business Prime. Amazon Business Prime is one of the cooperative marketplaces that the county utilizes, and it generates, or it has a savings of over $2,500 for the course of the year, shipping savings, better pricing on a lot of the office supplies and things that the county purchases through Amazon. But there is a expected subscription fee there. And then the other one is line 27, and I increased that training by $500 just to accommodate increased costs that we're seeing associated with conferences, online trainings that are provided through our staff, through national professional associations and alike. We do not have any capital contributions, so there's no CIPs, and contracted services is maintained. I'm happy to answer any questions about the general fund section.
Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Huntout.
Director McCauley. So I just want to talk about the staff positions again. And you said that you and the procurement officer in the general fund budget. So the grant specialist position, it remains funded by the remaining ARPA funds. Is that correct?
Yes, for FY27, that's still the case, yes.
Okay, so I want to have this discussion with my fellow commissioners and with Roger and Mr. Cornwell. I've expressed my concerns and interests for a long time, several years, but I want you to help paint that picture. That I think the current staffing level is needs to be and should be, and the work is there to sustain that staffing level as our base staffing level. However, that ARPA funding is going to be gone in the next year or so, right? So how do we do that? I think I want you to describe for us or help us describe the level of work. I mean, I think our goal, let me paint a picture. I think what we're trying to do, and one of the goals and reasons for the development of your department was to try to supplement the local tax dollar with everything we can bring in from the outside. And as you've described in your mission, the complications of the grant funding we already have and how much support the departments need and all of that from experts in grants and how grants are not only sought, but then they have to be the work to, what's the term? To
The management
of a
administration,
grant.
yes.
That's what I was thinking. The management of the grants is really complicated, especially, I mean, ARP was a good example. Zillion different strings and zillion different boxes to check and things to make sure that we did in order to receive and spend that money and make sure we didn't have to do anything or send any back. So I guess what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way is that I think the base staffing that we have right now is adequate and is important to try and maintain going forward. I want us to have that outward look, that long-term look. How are we going to fund this after the ARPA funding's gone?
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to maintain this level of staffing? I think we really need to be thinking about that. We need to be addressing that now versus when, oh, geez, ARPA's gone. How are we going to, do we have to decrease staffing? And I don't want to do that because I think, as you're going to describe for me now when I shut up, is how much work is really there, even post-ARPA, to support our departments.
Yeah.
And if we expect to try and bring as much, especially federal funding, back to Montana and back to our county that we can get, we have to have the expertise to do that and then manage it. And I believe that you and the procurement officer alone would be overwhelmed, and we would have much less opportunity to not only get those awards, but then manage those awards if we don't have this current level of staffing. So I just want us to think about it. I want to get it on the table. We need to be thinking about this going forward. So speak to that for me, and maybe I'll call on Mr. Cornwell too.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hunthausen, thank you for that segue into an important thing that I've been thinking about for many years, actually. Through the ARPA program, we've been fortunate to be able to have this dedicated resource to be able to manage as you'll see in a couple slides later, 66 projects and $17.5 million that came with this funding that was unanticipated at the time that it came, right? The COVID-19 pandemic. But you look back there's other incidences where we get unexpected funding. The National Opioid Settlement, while less funding, it still has a level of requirements, tracking, administration that has to happen, and having a dedicated resource for those kind of funding that when they come through has been critical. So looking forward, I completely agree. Having someone like Eliza on our team, being able just to take on the ARPA, but then she's also been very critical in other projects. She's been helping support the Fairgrounds project and some other ones coming up, brings a wealth of information, has a lot of experience that I don't have, especially some on the private charitable foundation side. So it's really expanded my thinking and our understanding of how we can best leverage our funding, obviously with our federal and state partners, but then also with charitable foundations where it makes sense. So looking forward for FY27, we can still, and I'll get to this in the next slide. If you're okay, maybe I'll move to that next slide. This is the ARPA fund portion. So the American Rescue Plan Act, the project dollars need to all be expended by December 31 of 2026. And we're on track to do that. That's the funding that's allocated in lines 54 and 56. So other purchases, contract services, and then transfer to outside sources is our project funds. The administration of the ARPA program, though, can go all the way through April 30th, and that allows for closeout, wrapping up of projects, making sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed for the final report due to Treasury at April 30th. Looking forward to FY27, we are going to have some expected large CDBG requests. This will be for the Lincoln construction phase of their Public Safety Emergency Operations Center. Traditionally, Lewis and Clark County, as well as the City of Helena, have always passed through 100% of those awards to our subrecipients. And then they, in turn, usually hire a third-party engineering or architecture firm to do that grant administration. Other counties do this differently, and I think it's wise to think about how we can maybe have some of that funding, that grant administration that we still have to do, stay within Lewis and Clark County. I just was on a sub-award training last week, and they said you can delegate duties, you can't delegate responsibility when you're the applicant, and we have a subrecipient. So we can delegate those duties down, but we still have the ultimate responsibility of making sure that those funds are being spent appropriately, that we're doing our due diligence as that pass-through entity. So I think there's some opportunity for some revenue for that. It would be direct expenses, direct time and effort that's spent administering those subawards. I've spoken to our city counterparts on this, and they also are in agreement, and I think it's something we're both going to look at pursuing in the future, especially for these larger CDBG type of awards that do have a lot of administration with them. Labor Standards Act, those kind of things that also have to come along with them. Eliza, as you're well aware, is also helping with the National Opioid Settlement work right now. She's the liaison for the county for the Montana Opioid Abatement Trust. And if there's some funds to help cover, that direct time spent, I think there's a lot of avenues that we can definitely pursue, and been working with Frank on what those can be and look like in the future for FY28 and beyond.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Hunthausen.
Good. I'm glad that the work's being done because, and I guess you said it in your comments, but the amount of money that we are able to attract and bring back to easily pays for itself. I mean, over time, I think. But it's that commitment that we have to that level of staffing, and hopefully there's agreement amongst us that we can get there and make sure that continues. But anyway, I don't know, Mr. Cornwell, if you have any comments at this point, but
I don't know if I have too much more to add. I think that Anna has mentioned that we have meetings on this. We've talked about the strategy of on what it would look like in order to maintain that staffing level, and you know, we try to get these positions paid for through other sources. So I think the CDBG approach that she's taking there is appropriate, and it's just one of the strategies we could take when we look at this. So yeah, we are looking at this, but more to come. We're continuing. We're still more work to be done.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Question I want to kind of get this clear in my head. If I remember right, our ARPA funding has to be completed by the end of this calendar year, not our fiscal year, but at the end of 2026 calendar year. And then there would be some wrap-up work to be done.
Mhm.
And was it like, did I understand you to say that's due by April or something of the following year?
Yeah.
So that pretty much takes it through the full year anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
So we have to be done with the ARPA funding by January of 2026. Is that correct?
December 31 of 2026 for the project
Okay.
funds. Yes.
And then, but we're going to have wrap-up obligations for the following 4 months, and we won't have the benefit of remaining ARPA funds. So there's 4 months worth of costs there. Is that coming out of maybe the director's salary? Could you explain that to me, please?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Payne. So the project funds need to be fully expended by 2026, the end of the calendar year. What we've allocated here, so like line 36, personnel services for that grant administration, that can carry forward all the way through April 30th of 2027. We also anticipate the ARPA program will be our single audit project for 2027. And so those ARPA or that audit, or excuse me, our single audit for 2026. But we can also pay for that audit, that single audit cost for 26. That will come out of other purchases, contract services, but that can happen in that administration phase as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Hannah.
And just to be clear, my comments and questions were really related to budget year 2028. This year's funded. It's clear in her budget that everybody's funded all the way through this fiscal year. But I'm talking about the next year and how do we plan for that and make sure that we're ready to go to keep this level of staffing for the subsequent years. So that's kind of the planning that we were talking about, and I think they're on track. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
One question.
Commissioner
Do we ever cut back on staffing? I mean, when I talk to our constituents, they say, what? We've got so much growth in government. And I know there's way more sophisticated ways of looking at this. For every employee that we keep, and they're good employees and well-trained, but still, that's what the taxpayers are talking about, growth in government. Do we ever lay people off because they don't have work to do, or we don't have money to pay for it, or how does that work?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Henshausen.
I'm glad we're having this discussion because that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, Commissioner. However, where we can benefit the taxpayer and make sure that we're being fiscally responsible. So in this case, for example, that position helps bring back hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars in federal grant money, by far pays for itself, and it benefits the citizens by getting projects on the ground, like the new center in Lincoln, and or new roof on the Holter Museum, and or maybe a road project or a bridge or something like that. So if we can show a cost benefit, then that position is very much worth keeping because it ultimately benefits the local taxpayer. We ask less from them, and we are able to bring back those federal dollars are going to be spent somewhere in the United States because they're allocated by Congress. We might as well work really hard to get them back to Montana. And part of that funding that we bring back can fund that position, which doesn't take from the local taxpayer, and then it adds infrastructure and other projects to our community that benefit our local taxpayers. So the cost benefit ratio is easily described. And that's what I was asking about, that they have a plan to show that for us in 2028 so we can keep that position. We don't have to cut that position. We can keep it and justify that position and show how much it benefits Lewis and Clark County. So thank you.
Thank you, Andy. That was very helpful.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Roger. Commissioners, if I could just weigh in too, Commissioner, just listening to your questions. So maybe just a quick explanation in terms of the philosophy of government and your point about growing government. Whenever the county has a vacancy that occurs, if the vacancy has been budgeted and approved by the county commissioners, we typically fill that position. But we always use it as an opportunity. Our department directors, our leadership team looks at each position to ensure that it is still needed to provide programs and services, that type of thing. Over the past several years, we have reduced staffing in the county for a number of different reasons. Each case is pretty unique. An example would be, roughly 7 years ago, Pureview used to be a part of our county government. But Pureview indicated an interest in no longer being a part of our county government, so they separated. We negotiated a separation, and so all of those employees that were county employees at one time are no longer county employees. Another example would be every now and then we have budgets where we have to take corrective actions so that spending stays in line with the revenues that we have. So it's probably been about 3 years ago we identified a challenge with our ITS department. And so our director brought forward recommendations to restructure that department, which included the reduction of an employee position. Another example would be a few years ago, our health department had similar challenges that they were working through, and they reduced a division that they had there and reduced some staffing. So in the course of the way we operate our government, the budgets meetings that we're having right now are the ideal place to have this conversation. But when the county commissioners go through a process and approve these budgets, we typically do fill those positions, but we have a process whereby we evaluate any openings that occur, and if efficiencies can be gained, we attempt to do that. I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions at this point? Ann, is there something else you want to add?
So since this department existed, which was the first budget year was FY22, we've had the American Rescue Plan Act as part of that budget. This is the last budget year, you'll see that. So I wanted to take an opportunity to just do a very high level review of the impact of the last 5 years and what these funds have done within our county. So what you see here is a pie chart, and this includes our direct allocation, the minimum allocation grants. Those were the water and sewer specific grants that were available through Department of Natural Resources, but they were all part of the ARPA package. And then it also includes the Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund funding, which was also COVID related. So in all, that's just about $17.6 million. The majority of this went to government services, and I'll go through kind of where each of these went actually. So a total of 66 projects, 15 of those supported community organizations within our county. This supported childcare, child welfare, affordable housing, medical facilities, aid to tourism and travel, and park and recreational facilities throughout our county for just around $3 million. Of water and sewer infrastructure projects, we had 11 of these for $3 million. These provided clean water and safe drinking water across the county. Our government services, 31 projects across 11 departments in activities related to planning, public infrastructure, public safety, stormwater mitigation, ARP administration, and government operations. And this was a countywide reach. It was kind of fun actually looking up our map, which we have online, of where all these projects have taken place, but we pretty much hit all communities across the county. Elk Creek Colony, we did one of our very first water and sewer infrastructure projects was there. Marysville, that was the repaving of the Marysville Road. Unionville with our school project. Wolf Creek, that was a slip line and water and sewer infrastructure project there. So been fortunate to be able to hit all aspects of our county. And more information is available on our website. And this is a story map that has a description of each of the projects and a map and some more information about where these funds were done or where they went throughout the county. And I do want to note the ARPA administration at 2.5% is pretty remarkable. To administer this many funds and only have it utilize less than 3% of that total allocation was pretty remarkable for us to continue to do. And that's all I have today.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions for about this particular budget? Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll go on to the next.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Commissioner Chair and Commissioner Hunthausen and Payne. For the record, my name is Jenny Chambers, Lewis Clark County Public Works and Planning Department Director. This morning, I'm just going to be discussing Community Development and Planning Department. On Thursday, you'll hear from the Public Works team. So our responsibilities within the Planning Department include coordination and guidance and development through planning, zoning, subdivision review, buildings for lease and rent, floodplain development, open lands, parks, and historical preservation. Our mission is to provide high quality service, encourage public participation, improve communication, and try to utilize clear, objective standards and procedures to help the folks within Lewis and Clark County. In your budget packet, you'll included is some budget narratives that list the planning department's and historical preservation recent accomplishments. I'm just going to highlight a few of those. This last year, the Community Development and Planning Department updated the Lewis and Clark County Growth Policy. They implemented a trail stewardship program grant to construct a permanent trail and install benches and signage at North Star Park. The floodplain manager worked with the U.S. Forest Service, installed a rain gauge at Horse Gulch burn scar area and continues to monitor the impacts from that burn scar and potential runoff concerns. We completed a joint City of Helena and County infrastructure study focused on infrastructure inside the urbanized standards boundary. We updated the fee schedule for planning and public works activities, revised the buildings for lease and rent regulation, created and consolidated county land use board and have drafted bylaws, and we'll be ready to hold the first meeting with them in June. And adopted amendment to regulations for special zoning district number 43. In the historical preservation group, you guys heard the presentation with the joint city county commission meeting last week. But just to highlight a few things for historical preservation, because it is absorbed within this community development and planning budget. They use the ARPA funds in coordinating with volunteers to complete the structural and foundation repairs at the Unionville Schoolhouse. They've also reviewed and provided recommendations for, I believe, up to 5 demolition permits for historical properties within the city of Helena historical districts. And then last year at the beginning, they have updated an interlocal agreement with the city of Helena to establish the city of Helena and Lewis Clark County Heritage Preservation and Cultural Tourism Council. So that new agreement through the interlocal was updated. So looking forward to fiscal year 27, some slight increases in the overall budget. A lot of those are due to the health plan contributions that Director Cronwell indicated, the COLA and step increases, and then some other personnel changes. The planning department currently has 11 FTE, and the positions are allocated on the table that's provided below. Keep in mind that the historical preservation is supported by Pam at 30 hours a week and Kathy at 10 hours a week. Together, they make up 1 FTE. So you might see the list of numbers, but it's just 1 together. There was also an allocation for an enforcement specialist in fiscal year 2026 that was vacant. And with the recent organizational changes, the combination of the planning department and the public works department at the beginning of this last fiscal year, the director's position used 0.5 of the FTE of that enforcement specialist vacant. And the other half is split within the 0.5 within the public works. So that half remained vacant in 2026. Looking forward in 2027, the request is for an increase of 0.5 FTE to have a full-time FTE, 1 FTE, to potentially hire someone to support the implementation and program requirements to comply with the new municipal separate storm sewers program. So as a reminder, the Federal Clean Water Act regulates stormwater management, permits surface water discharges, and controls to the maximum extent practicable to protect water quality and satisfy the appropriate water quality requirements. The Clean Water Act federal requirements were adopted in the Montana Water Quality Act. Montana Department of Environmental Quality has primacy from the Federal Environmental Protection Agency for the regulatory oversight. And DEQ is currently in the rulemaking to add Lewis and Clark County, East Helena, Gallatin County, and City of Belgrade to the list that will have to comply with the municipal separate storm sewer system regulations. We anticipate that we'll receive a formal notice in the fall of 2026, and then we'll have 6 months to submit a permit coverage, and then we'll have to start to comply with the Montana Pollutant Discharge Elimination System general permit for that MS4 program. The hire in the position may not be necessary, so I do want to highlight that we are asking today for the 0.05 increase of budget authority to make 1 full FTE for the potential program. It may not be necessary to hire that position at the very beginning because we currently have an internal working group between planning, public works, public health, and the finance department. And as program activities and requirements are needed, we're going to evaluate if we can divide those amongst the different departments and try to absorb the efforts that we need to do to comply with those regulations. Also, in addition, Greg McNally, as a project manager, is helping coordinate the MS4 activities. And so just depending upon the capacity needs and impacts of resources over time, it will be determined whether or not we need to hire that FTE position. So early on, it's uncertain, but there's a lot to this program and there's a lot of implementation required. So we're going to see what we can do in-house, see how we can maintain compliance with the permit, but they request the budget authority in case we do need to fill this position at the later part of the fiscal year. So in looking at the operation and maintenance budget, no significant changes or adjustments from previous years. I just was going to highlight a few of the expenditure categories that might be a little bit more higher dollars. There's $2,000 in the budget for potential office setup costs for the new FTE if we need it. Contracted services, $77,500 for traffic counts. Planning department splits that cost with the public works department to just update our numbers, look at the growth, do traffic counts, across the county. $40,000 for Central Square. This is a Trackit software upgrade and implementation. This is going to be extremely important as we move into the next fiscal year 27. It's to upgrade an outdated system that we use for subdivision review applications, all of our permits, floodplain, excavation, approach permits, and that we're looking to do a more public-facing portal so folks can submit their application and see what the status of those moving forward. So that's an effort we're going to attempt to implement within fiscal year 27. $32,500 for miscellaneous technical support. At times, there could be the need where we have to hire outside consultants to support planning activities. If we received a floodplain permit and Warby needed a third-party technical evaluator to evaluate that floodplain permit, and Department of Natural Resources and Conservation has elected not to perform it for conflict of interest or whatever the case may be, we would like to hire a third party. In addition, sometimes we have zoning disputes with surveys, and sometimes we need to review zoning to see if folks are encroaching upon a neighboring survey based upon addressing the complaint. So sometimes it's needed, sometimes it's not, but we want to have that in there just in case. $220,000 is for MS4 program support. As I indicated, we have that internal working group, but we also need external consultants support at least in the first 1 or 2 years of the program to really meet our needs of that development of that program, to develop a stormwater management plan, to help us with our urbanized boundary, to help us with GIS mapping. And that budget authority is to get us a contract with that we've got with Weston that we're getting ready to bring forward to you most likely in June for the contracted dollars amounts of that task order and requirements. And then $2,500 for that initial MS4 notice of intent permit application fee. So we have to get the application developed. We have to have supporting materials for that application. We have to get it submitted 6 months after DEQ provides us formal notice.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Henhausen.
Director Chambers, just for education purposes, the MS4 program, you did a pretty good job describing that, but it's a new requirement that has come along, and it's essentially an unfunded new requirement, correct? So we're asked to do more, and we're asked to do a whole new program in terms of stormwater. Maybe explain it a bit, but it didn't come with any funding. So we're having to figure out, how do we do this? How do we meet both the expertise, technical, all that kind of stuff, and get all the work done that is going to be required via this program? And how are we going to fund it? How are we going to have enough people to do it, as well as the expertise, correct? So just maybe explain that a little bit, because it's new.
Yes, certainly, Chair Rolfe, Commissioner Hunthausen. So yes, the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System program is new to our county. It's not new to the state or even to the national area. Stormwater management is very important for water quality, but we hit the trigger when our urbanized boundary area for the 2010 census reached the 50,000. Right. So as we're growing as a county, these new regulations come forward. So for instance, on the transportation realm, we had to create a metropolitan planning organization because we grew above the 50,000, and that requires different steps. On the Clean Water Act, from the stormwater impacts, you have more urbanized area, you have more chance for pollution, you have impacts associated with water quality. So we hit the trigger with our population growth to comply with the requirements of the MS4 program. There's public education and outreach requirements, public participation and involvement, illicit discharge and detection and elimination. You don't want to have, if it's not raining and you have a discharge into your outfall areas, something's going on that's not in a permitted discharge. So you got to track those to see if you have a illicit discharge from an industrial facility or septic or sewage type releases. We have to manage our construction stormwater activities. So as we're development, sediment is a big concern. So you have to look at construction stormwater management, post-construction stormwater runoff from new development, and then just overall pollution prevention and good housekeeping. So those even are internal activities at the county that we have a chance to pollute our waterways. We have to look at internally at our stormwater management practices. That would be the Lewis Clark landfill, the public works complex, the fairgrounds, all of our industrial type areas that were within our county, we also have to look at that from a stormwater management. So yes, it doesn't come with funding. It comes with the regulatory requirements. There's a whole permit we have to comply with. We're going to get inspected and evaluated on how we're performing those permit requirements. We have an annual report we're going to have to submit. So we're looking, it crosses multiple avenues within the county. And so the internal work group is to say, how can we divide and share these programs to utilize what we currently have, but also to get enough training and education out there so we can comply with the permit within the different program areas. As part of the work group, we're also looking at how do we sustain the funding. So right now, this request for the FTE increase and the contracted services amount is kind of absorbed within the planning department's budget at today. But looking forward, we're not going to be able to sustain that based upon those activities. So we're looking at options potentially to create a special district to get assessment revenue from those properties that are impacted within that urbanized area. The other thing to note, just from a water quality standpoint, is regardless of whether or not we met the population threshold, we have a lot of impairments within Lewis and Clark County. So when you look at our waterways, 10 Mile, Silver Creek, Hauser Lake, a lot of those are listed on the total maximum daily load, and they're impaired for some type of sediment or some type of contaminant. And so overall, we do have a benefit by implementing a program to try to reduce those water quality impairments for our area and our recreational users, our tourism, our drinking water, all of those things comes with a long-term benefit by implementation of this program.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just think it was important to explain that.
And Director, again, would you go back and explain to me the other departments that are brought into this that are affected?
Yeah, Commissioner Rolfe, certainly. So Public Works, kind of not a surprise there, but they have the industrial facility down in Cooney that we have to manage stormwater on that site. They also do important activities within stormwater, street sweeping, managing how they apply magnesium chloride, how we do snow removal to get out off the roads, how we use sand during the winter season. So all those activities impact stormwater and will have to be instrumental in the program. Public health, environmental services, public health has a lot of role within this particular operation. When they implement when they issue new septic discharge permits, how are they helping evaluate that those permits are being controlled? The Water Quality Protection District with Jennifer McBroom's shop. She does a lot of these monitoring and impacts on water quality that we're hoping we can leverage her and her team's expertise to doing some of the sampling requirements and monitoring that we have to do moving forward. The Finance Department, no brainer, we need money to implement a lot of these programs and support from that aspect to implement things moving forward. So they're part of the team on how do we sustain the funding and how do we really implement this program long term. And then the Planning Department. So all of this comes with pieces and parts of how do you plan, how do you organize, how do you meet your annual requirements. Also, one key component of this program is construction stormwater management. So we're going to have a program that we implement new development within the county. We do right now from zoning, but how do we know prior to when they start construction that they're managing stormwater construction on their property? So planning is going to be part of that team about maybe doing a building permit of some sort, a development permit, so that we know when these activities are going to be disturbing more than 1 acre within that urbanized boundary. So that's just kind of a nutshell.
And kind of a follow-up. Could you explain some of the things that the ramifications for not doing this? If we were not to do that, how would that affect our federal funding and whatever else?
Mr. Chairman, the big one, and it's multiple, but we want to be doing our job within the county as public servants to protect water quality, to try to implement a program to improve the water quality and to help address those impairments that we have within our recreational areas. But that's just fundamentally the benefit of this program. If we didn't do it, it is a federal requirement from the Clean Water Act. Department of Environmental Quality is the regulatory agency that can oversee enforcement activities associated with implementation. They would issue us an administrative order to comply with the permit. If we refuse to do that, they would assess penalties. And one example to share with you is Yellowstone County pushed back a little bit on their requirements to comply with their permit, and they are getting assessed a penalty. I'm not sure the dollar amount, but they are getting assessed a penalty, and they still have to then turn around and comply with the permit. So we might as well take the money that we would have potentially spent by a penalty and just implement in the program and try to do the best job we can to comply with the overall operations. Being cost effective, managing our resources and trying to do it the most protective way that can meet the permit conditions without a huge added expense into the county.
And one more follow-up. Is there any way that we can get this, say, the city of Helena or the city of East Helena to participate in the cost here?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Rolfe, that's a great question. There is an option within the permit to do a co-permittee type status. The trouble is that would expand our boundary. So right now, the Lewis and Clark boundary would, of course, not include the city of Helena's jurisdiction, would not include the city of Helena's jurisdiction. It would just be our urbanized boundary. It would cost us money as well if we wanted to join on to the city of Helena or join on the city of East Helena. So we're certainly going to have to partner on looking to see how their discharges impact the county, how we can support where our boundaries overlap within the jurisdiction. But another big one that we've been talking to the city of Helena on, and we'll certainly talk with the city of East Helena on, is how can we leverage training, public education, and involvement county-wide, not just within our specific jurisdictional areas, but as far as sampling, monitoring, and some of those other activities, we might be on our own, but there could be areas we could leverage additional resources.
Thank you.
And in the planning department, we also have a capital improvement plan. It's definitely not as long as Public Works, but we do have a small CIP. Two things in the capital improvement plan is the Central Square Track-It software upgrade. This is just a placeholder for, in addition to the contracted services, for support for additional tasks that we might have Central Square help us with as we start implementing the program. And also information technology has hired a technical implementation manager, and how they fund that position is by having that person support other program activities. So I wanted to have budget authority set aside in the capital improvement plan to pay for that staff times assistance. We can really utilize an IT support and technical resource to help us with this project management. We also have in there a small amount of money for a smart board technology workstation upgrade. This is in conference room 226. We don't think we're going to replace the new monitor, but we think we have to maybe replace the workstation. And then we're also looking at the other half of that room because oftentimes we divide it. That room 226 is shared with the transportation department of the city of Helena because they utilize it as well. So we're just looking at how we can partner better with that on that particular project. And last is just to kind of highlight the commissioner goals and objectives. So how does the planning department meet the commissioner goals and objectives? So the first one is to develop and maintain a culture of customer service. Lewis Clark County Planning Department is committed to strong customer service through timely and proactive communication, transparency, and public education. So in fiscal year 2027 budget requests, we have dollars allocated for upgrading that software system, Central Square, track it to a public online facing portal that would allow applicants to view the status of their permits and pending applications. We also hope to have the ability to have applications submitted electronically. So that's how we're trying to strive towards more customer service for our development community. Engage in long-range planning. That hits planning department as a whole. We utilize long-range planning approach to identify prioritized goals. Long-range planning goals in community development are broad and forward-looking that define the desired outcomes and state of the community and guide decision-making over the many years. The efforts and objectives are clear in documents such as the growth policy, zoning regulations, the efforts we have in fiscal year 27 to update our subdivision regulations to allow the policies and programs and resources shared towards those priorities. In addition, also your budget narrative has a list of long-range planning goals for the next 3 to 5 years. So we're trying to highlight how do we look at long-range planning. Improve communication between departments with community partners and general public. I highlighted some of this for you today, with the MS4 internal working group. How do we partner across the county to look at our resources effectively and help with communication of efforts? We currently have finalized the joint city-county infrastructure study, the historical preservation interlocal, and continue to look at land use planning and development documents with the City of Helena and East Helena. And then effectively and efficiently manage resources, just committed to the use of public resources. This is achieved through prioritization of projects, looking when grant funds are available as they come available, and maximize the effectiveness of staff, equipment, and partnerships. So as I indicated, if we don't need to hire the FTE, we won't. We'll certainly try to look to see how we can utilize the resources we have and then come back with the request if it is needed or warranted based upon staffing needs. So that's what I have for you today, Chairman. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I've got a comment.
All right.
I just love it when she says, that's all we've got. I'm thinking, holy cow, my head is spinning. And I'm thinking, this is the one budget of them all that I usually can, but I can't do it fast. It's got to be. So I appreciate you giving us an introduction to what it is I'm going to get into. But it's not going to be done quickly. So thank you, Jenny.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Roger.
if I could just add a couple of things. Great information, of course, about what we're doing. Couple of quick things, just kind of thinking broad picture about planning and community development. Commissioners, just as a reminder, there's been a change, right? We have now implemented, and you just appointed a new board called the C Club.
That's right.
County Land Use. Thank you, Jenny. Would you?
It's consolidated or county consolidated land use board. So if we say, come to the club, that's what we're talking about.
That doesn't mean that, like the Montana Club. Darn.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Hunthausen.
I just wanted to say thank you for your budget presentation, but also, as you know, it's been one of my wishes that we more overtly tie our budgets and our budget presentations to the county goals and the county, and you did that very well, and I just wanted to thank you for that and making it very, very obvious.
And Mr. Chair, I'm sorry if I could just add one other quick thing too. Again, just thinking broad picture about the department beside the new board that we've got in place. Community development planning is also taking a leading role in a project that we've been working on for a couple of years now and still have some work to do on. And that's that 9 acres of what we call the county annex property that's right next to the fairgrounds. So Jenny and Greg McNally and the planning team are interacting with the engineering firm that's evaluating that property right now. And that report is moving along. I think it's very close to finalization. Jenny and I were just speaking about it a few days ago. So it's a priority project that you've given us that we'll be talking a little bit more about as we go through our budgets. I just wanted to mention that as well. Thank you.
Great. One of the things that has kind of bothered me, and maybe it's just me, but it seems as though, particularly the city of Helena, sort of picks and chooses on the boundary, and we wind up with little pieces that are either mostly surrounded by city or entirely surrounded by the city that have not been drawn into the city yet, and it just seems to me like they should be more responsible in the way they move their boundaries out to the reality of what's going on. Is there anything that in our dealing with this metropolitan thing where we can do anything about that?
So, Mr. Chairman, great question. So the whole purpose of the joint infrastructure study was to help with some of that coordination. Where does the urbanized standard boundary fall around the city of Helena? Where can infrastructure be expanded? Where can they grow and annex, regardless of when there's development coming in from a new subdivision proposal? So yes, that was the whole purpose of that. Certainly, we're going to have to continue conversation with the city of Helena, all of the departments, public works, transportation, and the their planning office as well, planning department. The other thing that it impacts is it provides an uncertainty for the developers on which jurisdiction they fall within. So right now, when it's in that nebulous area between, it's going to get eventually, the subdivision development has been submitted to the city of Helena. They've received preliminary plat approval, but it's not yet annexed into city land. When they're doing development for new infrastructure or new roads, they have to get a permit through the county because they're impacting our county roadways and our infrastructure. And then they're trying to figure out how do they continue with their subdivision? Can they build houses? Can they connect to the water? Can they get this stuff reviewed and approved? Well, it's not the city of Helena's jurisdiction yet because it's not yet annexed. And it's not Lewis Clark County because it wasn't our subdivision to review from a UMEP preliminary plat within a city regulation. So there is an importance with customer service and how do we get certainty to developers and those want to move forward to partner with the city of Helena to figure out to solve that problem. We abandoned roadways within the county, but yet it's not yet annexed in the city. So yes, that's going to be an effort fiscal year 27 and beyond to try to help resolve those concerns or try to figure out a different methodology to move forward with.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I really appreciate the detail. I appreciate the constant communication about what's going on in your department. Your reports that you send to us about what you've accomplished and what your plans are very helpful. And I thank you for that
You're welcome.
communication. We're to that point. We need to talk a little bit about if anybody needs a break, or we've got a potential break at 11 o'clock. What's your thought? Okay, let's just keep going through here. Administration and finance.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Frank Cornwell, CFO of the county. Today we'll be going over three of your budgets. This for FY26, and one of them is your budget, the commission budget, and then the administration budget, and we have a miscellaneous budget that we do a lot of large miscellaneous transactions in. We'll go ahead and just start off with your budget today. The commission's budget. So the Board of County Commissioners budget is accounted for in the all-purpose fund or the general fund. It includes salaries, benefits for the 3 full-time commissioners and related operations and maintenance costs. For fiscal year 2027, the budget is $600,013, which is a 4.77% increase from the prior year. Just a few highlights here. For personnel, you had a 2.7% COLA, and also step increases, health plan contribution increase, and for O&M or operation and maintenance, we had a minor increase of $2,812. A capital contribution for fiscal year 27 is $7,500. It's a pretty small and straightforward budget. I'll just ask if there's any questions when it comes to your guys's for the commission's budget.
I have a question.
Commissioner, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm sure everybody else understands this whole thing. I know what personnel is. I know what O&M is. What the heck is the commission doing with it? Capital contribution. What does that go to?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Payne, That is a great question. The commission owns two assets. One is a vehicle. You have a Yukon that sits outside of this building that we are saving to replace in the future. Eventually, that vehicle will be needing to be replaced. So you do an annual contribution to replace that in the future, and also there is a copier. Just the two items. So the copier, you have a very large copier that's very much utilized here on this third floor. So it's kind of a spendy one, and we're anticipating, that when those things go, it's about $10,000 to replace. So that's it. That's the only two items.
There are many definitions of capital, and I just wanted to make sure I understood. So thank you, Frank. That helps a lot.
You're welcome.
I see in all of them, it seems like our health plan keeps getting more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're working on that, and I'm hoping that here before long we'll have a report on what might be done.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Roger and I and Carrie DeRozier has been a significant amount of time on strategizing on how to get the costs down and how to maintain a level of service that our plan provides. So it is a constant battle. Roger and Carrie and I meet, I believe, if it's not every 2 weeks, it's at least every month on this subject, and probably more frequently. And there are quite a few strategies that we're working through. There's more to come. We also have an actuary that has been giving us advice on our plan. To be honest, our actuary has been pretty forthright. What he says is the state of our plan, and right now our reserves are far too low, and when it comes to actuarial studies. So we are working on those, and there's a lot of different strategies. Unfortunately, the primary strategy is increasing the rates. I will say that our actuary has suggested us to increase rates significantly. We have decided to take a tiered approach to those increases to lessen the impact on the groups within the plan. Unfortunately, that tends to lengthen out the time that it takes to get the plan in good shape and get the reserves back into actuarial appropriate levels. So lots of work being done. I'm not sure how much we'll be presenting that during these departmental presentations, but we have a preliminary budget that will have an overall impact on how everything is kind of coming together in June. We have 2 of those meetings, and we'll have a much more direct conversation about kind of the impacts of those. So more to come. Thank you for asking, but right now it's impacting all the departments and our permissive levy level as well. So, but we're working very hard to get those reserves in place, get the plan stabilized, and still maintain a competitive workforce. So,
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions? All right. Let's go on.
Thank you, Chairman. Moving on to the administration budget. Just a general summary of the administrative budget is accounted for within the all-purpose fund, or general fund again. The budget includes salaries and benefits and costs for 11 full-time employees, positions within finance, personnel, and administration. So HR is included as well. For fiscal year 2027, the budget is $2.2 million, which is a 5.73% increase from the prior year budget. A few highlights here that I've shown on the screen. Personnel, again, includes that 2.7% COLA, step increases, and health plan contribution increases. It also includes a $100,000 miscellaneous payroll for potential market-based compensation adjustments. That's something that we do every other year. We have our HR department do a full market analysis to make sure that we are competitive across the board within our departments to make sure that we're maintaining staff levels at where they are right now. For operation and maintenance overall, O&M expenditures decreased by $31,000, primarily due to removal of a prior year ADA rollover funding. That was just, we had a project at the end of last year. We had to roll over those funds into 26. We don't have that in for 27, so no roller necessary. So you guys have a very status quo budget, so O&M doesn't really move too much. This is pretty typical. And when something comes off, it tends to have a pretty dramatic effect on the administration budget. Fixed costs, just to note that we did when I say we, finance, accounting, all the departments have accomplished a implementation of a new ERP. During that implementation process, Enterprise Resource Platform, otherwise known as accounting system. You can kind of look at it as like a QuickBooks, but QuickBooks on steroids, I would say. It does a lot of things. Very significant lift across the departments and across staff. The reason why fixed cost has come down for administrative budget is that we no longer have to pay for two different platforms. In order to implement a new ERP, it is there's a strategy of parallel testing you want to keep. You want to be able to live in both platforms until you're ready to let go of the old one. We do maintain a $20,000 a year payment to maintain access to the old program, but we're no longer using it. We're no longer making entries and utilizing it. No more reporting, none of that. But we're still using it as a research. So when we want to look back into old history and old transactions for our auditors, financial projections, everything, it's still there. So we need to maintain that for 8 years. And once 8 years is up, the $20,000 will go away. But the annual software subscription, which is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, has gone away. So that is what's causing the fixed costs to go down for FY27. Annually, we like to show you the commission, our contracted services list within the administration budget. The only change this year was that ADA rollover being removed from prior year. So this is just status quo outside of that one item. Moving on to the miscellaneous budget. The miscellaneous budget is accounted for within the all-purpose fund again, and it includes expenditures for veteran burial services, mental health evaluations, contracted services, appropriations to nonprofit agencies, contingency, and transfers to other funds. No personnel costs are budgeted within this department. For fiscal year 2027, the budget is $2.4 million, which is a decrease of 4.76% from the prior year budget. Again, no personnel costs. O&M contracted services decreased due to the transfer of the MS4 program management to planning. We had initially, for 26, knowing that MS4 was coming on board, we didn't know where it was going to sit. We weren't quite sure what, as Jenny Chambers, Director Chambers, did a very good job of showing how kind of decentralized and how many departments this has impacted. It took us a little bit of time to find a place to park it. Planning is where we have parked it. They have the contracted services budget to be able to maintain this at least for 1 year. For FY27. So that has been moved out of this miscellaneous budget to there, which has caused an O&M decrease for this budget. I will note that transfers related to property and liability insurance has increased by $150,000. That is an item that is completely outside of trying to reduce our claims and trying to maintain and trying to keep our experience level low with our insurance provider. These costs continue to go up. So kind of outside of our, as much as outside of our control. So $150,000 increase from the prior year. The capital contribution, the annual capital contribution out of this fund is typically $820,000. This year it's $810,000. We are moving on, as you know, from the Margaret Stewart home. We no longer need to make a contribution to that capital improvement plan because that home, we have a plan, hopefully within the fiscal year, to have it off of the county's books, but more to come there. Going on. Here's the miscellaneous capital improvement plan. All these items are status quo from the prior year. As you know, that we're working on a few of them. There's an annex. The Fairgrounds annex project is one that we're currently working on actively. I think there's a plan. Roger might be able to add some more color to that if you want. We are analyzing that area at the Fairgrounds, so that might be something that we'll be spending dollars on relatively soon.
Thank you. If I could, Mr. Chair, maybe I'll just add to what Frank's already sharing with you. So we have a working group that meets on a regular basis to keep working on that project. As was mentioned earlier, there's an analysis of all the structures that are on the site. I want to say there's 11 is what I'm recalling from their draft report that we've seen. As soon as it is finalized, of course, we'll be following up on that. Commissioner Hunthausen is our commissioner who attends those meetings on a regular basis. It's been interesting. When we first began speaking about record storage and archives, we had participation from the city of Helena and the city of East Helena. That participation has dropped off over the past several months. However, we are still proceeding. Just as a reminder, that property, we lease it to the state of Montana, but we have let them know that when the lease expires in just under 3 years, that our intent is to repurpose that property. So there's been interest expressed for records storage and archiving, and a number of other uses too. So the working group is open to all of that. The sheriff's office has expressed an interest. Elections has expressed an interest as well too. So we have some work ahead of us, but we do have a working group that's meeting on a regular basis with that. And I don't know if Commissioner Hunthausen wants to add anything to that or not, but that's our current status.
All right. Anything you want to add?
Sounds like Commissioner Payne wants
Okay.
it first.
My question is, we're currently renting the annex to the city. I assume the city is paying us adequate compensation, right? So we'll be losing that amount?
So if I could, Mr. Chair. So Commissioner Payne, we do not lease the property to the city.
To the state.
Yes, to the state. However, it is a no payment lease that's been in place for many, many years. And they primarily do their surplus property operations there. And they also store a number of items in a few of our other buildings as well. They seem to do quite a bit of maintenance down there. And that goes back to an agreement that I think predates many of us, maybe not Commissioner Hunthausen, but it goes back many, many years ago, where a number of properties were swapped over to the county at one time, including where we now have the Ryan ball fields.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
Commissioner.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. At the time of transfer, we we wanted the property, and we're willing to take the property from the state, but we didn't have any capital saved. You can see how much we have saved now. We've been saving over time to do some work there. As well, we didn't have a plan. We hadn't evaluated the property, and the state did not have an alternative for their current functions they have out there. So it was a mutual benefit. They give the property to us. We let them, on paper, lease it back, so someone be there using the property, taking care of the property, and also, there's a security issue as well, that they would manage the property essentially until we were ready to use it. So, and we extended that lease for an extra 5 years, I believe. Anyway, it's going to be up in 2028, and we've let them know that we're now ready to probably start doing something on our property. So in that interim, we said, you can use the property until we need it, essentially. And that was kind of the agreement. I'm simplifying that, but that was kind of the agreement, that was good to have someone there using the buildings, keeping them going, the ones that they use. And then when we're ready to start getting serious about redevelopment of the property, that we would end their lease. And so we've done that. I think that's kind of a little bit of the history, but I'm excited. I'm looking forward to things. Could be a great place for elections, could be a great place for county archiving / museum and other things. Sheriff's office has some needs down there as well. So thanks, Mr. Chair.
And that, the number here is money that's set aside to take care of that when the time comes.
Correct.
And you should have, how much are you putting in there a year?
For this project, I'd have to go back. We make an annual contribution of $800,000 into the CIP.
Okay.
So it's split between all of these
So in
projects.
another 2 or 3 years, we'll have a couple million,
Yes.
$2.5 million
Yep.
more in that fund.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, maybe I could add just a little bit more. So we have made some expenditures over the past year and a half. We, through that working group that I mentioned, we did have a company come in who performed an inventory for us of documents and where they're at and how many linear feet of documents we have throughout the county. And then, of course, the study that's going on right now. So we've had a couple of expenditures that have occurred that are in progress right now.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I think we also
go ahead.
helped replace the fencing around the facility, update that, some other things. And then one note I would have, and Mr. Cornwell could probably back me up, Mr. Rotbalz as well, but the amount we have saved is really a starting place, because if we were going to, for example, just an example, move the entire elections office down there and elections operations down there, for example, it would probably take some serious renovation to at least one of the buildings where they would be, and some work to do that would probably cost more than we have saved, but this would be a great beginning. Same thing with archiving and / museum, that if we were going to really develop a part of that property to house that function, it would take more than we have saved. But this is a good beginning. So I don't think it is the number that we would need for in either one of those activities, but it is a beginning. So just to note. Thanks.
Okay. Well, go ahead.
Another comment. I guess I spend too many years in private enterprise, but I can't imagine owning a property of that size and location, and for 20 years letting another entity use it at no cost. I'm just, this dog doesn't hunt in the town I come from. If you got property and you don't use it, you can rent it out for profit. And I suppose that's naive and old school, and it doesn't work that way. But I can see where people out there in TV land watching this thinking, that seems odd. And so is this just the way it's done in all county government, that if you've got something the state wants to use, you just let them use it?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, Roger and I think both of us weren't here when this agreement went in place. However, I would mention the the state has built a building out there that we will take ownership over in 2028. So that it is not a complete loss when it comes to opportunity of revenue. So there's a building that we would take and assess as part of the assessment, part of the plan assessment, as a potential use for the county as well. So yeah, just to be fair to the state, I guess.
Mr. Chair, they gave us 9 acres for free.
Right.
So it was kind of the
The
hey,
state,
you donate this 9 acres to us, and we'll let you stay there for a number of years. So it was pretty fair deal for the taxpayers. We didn't pay a dime for that property. They gave us 9 acres.
I appreciate that explanation, particularly for those people out there who don't get an opportunity to question this stuff. I'm not a numbers person, but that makes sense. They gave us the 9 acres for nothing. Okay. And so they've had it for 20 years. About. And okay, thank you. That's it. I appreciate the clarification because this is awfully complex for those of us who are pretty black and white. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Commissioner. Mr. Chair, just last thing to point out on here is that there's a FEMA allocation here to match a project in Augusta, I believe. This is something that we annually have been contributing about $100,000 to, just to make sure that we have monies available for that plan. I think we're getting really close to it. Roger might be able to add color to it, but it's something that I believe, hopefully will be executed in fiscal year 27.
So, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, maybe I'll just build a little bit on what you're hearing from Frank about that. Just as a reminder, this was about the study that we had done for flooding around Augusta. And if you'll remember, there's been some presentations about essentially an earthen berm that would be built. And this would be the county's match toward that project. In fact, Public Works mentioned that they've just recently received a notice asking for additional information as we try to get that grant for a little over $1 million finalized. So we're optimistic about it, but it's not finalized as we speak just yet here today. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Any other questions? Go ahead, Frank.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, so the last item here is the list of the contracted services within the miscellaneous budget. Just like the administration's budget, this is status quo. There are no new items on here. These have been, some of them have been adjusted for inflation, and also been adjusted based off of city contribution increase requests. For example, HATS or their Helena area transit services, they have asked for an increase. All of that will be part of the new request form. So anything on this list that is new will be brought to you again, and we'll talk about anything new there. But outside of those, this is a status quo budget. I want to, before I move on.
Okay.
Yes, there's basically no changes here. So, and that concludes. Oh, go ahead.
Just a second. I noticed the third item down on the list is the 2.7% increase for CASA.
Correct.
And it's on our general fund contracted services, but yet CASA has their own budget here. Why do we have it in two places?
Yep. Mr. Chair, Commissioner. So CASA will come in and do their own budget presentation. And as part of that budget presentation, they have a funding request from the county. We typically do we typically give them the cost of living adjustment. It is something that we just do for them unless something changes.
Okay, and we have done this in the past, and that's why your
Yes.
position is there's no change.
No, yeah, and Mr. Chair, Commissioner, remember all of these items, they not only as a new item, but all of these items on that list every year since I've been here have been re-presented to you on there. So you reassess these as if they're new every year. So when that comes up, and if you guys want to have additional discussion, as to any one of these items, we can have further discussion there. But typically for CASA, we do a 2.7% increase. I'm trying to look.
Talk about the Symphony Under the Stars in double. It was.
Oh, sorry.
We're giving them is double what it has been.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, sorry, this is as a failure on my part. I forgot to take last year's notes off of there. That was from 25 to 26. That had doubled. So this year's request still remains $10,000. And this is the same thing with the Youth Forest Monitoring Assistance Program. Theirs is maintaining at $18,500. No increases there. That's my mistake. I should have taken those off. I was trying to be quick with my presentation.
So we had a large increase in the Youth Forest Monitoring Program assistance.
From 25 to 26, yes.
So between the two of them, what looks like they cost our taxpayers an extra $10,000 last year, and now that amount will continue in the years to come. Is that what you're saying?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, again, this is if that's what you decide. These items are brought to you. Again, you vote on these individually later on. So these are fungible levels of funding. So it's finances. It's very typical. If there are no additional increases or changes to their funding level, the amount in there that you'll see will be what they have asked for in the prior year. So we'll note the differences if there's any changes, but if there are no changes in the funding requests, the level is presented as such. And if you want to make adjustments, you can, but that's where we're at. So we'll note, like last year, when there's changes, like the Symphony last year, there was a change, and for the Youth Forest Monitoring Program. This year, outside of the COLAs and HCTV's 3% increase, which is a contract, there are no changes.
Okay.
Well, we probably won't have Margaret Stewart home utilities anymore.
Commissioner,
Yes, go ahead.
Chairman,
Obviously, I'm not understanding why we
the-
have this spreadsheet that is,
so the $2,000 for the Margaret Stewart utilities is $2,500. That's due to the fact that we still own the building within this fiscal year, and we're anticipating utility costs. So we still have to pay those bills until we move on from the building.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Thank you. Really
Yeah.
appreciate the detail and the opportunity to understand where everything's going. Roger.
Thanks, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So just as we're talking about these items, might be an opportune time for me to let you know there's a few other items that we are anticipating bringing back to you, not during the presentations that happen over the next 3 days, but after that. When we get into early June, we'll come back to you with what Frank already mentioned, the budget request discussions for you to approve or deny different requests. And I wanted to let you know we are anticipating a few other things here. So just for your information. So there's been some discussions about whether the commissioners might want to discuss and consider some additional funding for RMDC beyond what we provide them now. And Commissioner Hunthausen certainly defer to you, but I know you and I have talked a little bit about this, about whether the commissioners might want to provide some additional funding to them. And the amount, again, I don't want to speak for you, Commissioner, but I know we talked about maybe $100,000 more, but the commissioners would have to approve that. Also on my list here that I wanted to mention and give you a heads up about was whether the commissioners might want to establish and have approved in the budget for the coming year some additional funds for Many Rivers to continue to operate the Journey Home if indeed they continue to be successful, which we all hope is what occurs for the coming fiscal year as well. You'll remember that we set aside, or you authorized, a funding agreement of $200,000 for this fiscal year, provided they meet some criteria, which I know they're attempting to do right now. So again, additional funding toward many rivers.
What was that amount?
That amount hasn't been established yet, but there's been amounts mentioned ranging from $150,000 up to $300,000 possibly being needed per year. But again, that would be up to the commissioners to decide whether you support doing that or not. Let's see. So again, commissioners, those are just a couple of additional items that would be brought back to you after these presentations occur this week by Mr. Cornwell and myself at a future commission meeting, which will probably happen very, very early in June. Glad to answer any questions you have about any of that. Just wanted to give you a heads up. All right, thank you.
All right. Any other questions on this? Now, how are we set? We want to just keep going, or do you want to take a break? Let's go ahead. All right. Let's go ahead, and then we can have maybe a little longer lunch break. Is that okay? All right. Okay.
Fancy slideshow.
That's okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Lisa Callio. I'm the Clerk of District Court. I'm here to present my fiscal year 2027 budget. The total increase, I just added up while I was sitting over there, is $104,543, which includes the 2.7% cost of living adjustment, step increases, and the increase to health insurance. The capital contribution will remain the same at $5,000. I am requesting an additional $3,000 for minor equipment. We are getting a new jury program, which will require us to have at least 2 laptop computers to sign in jurors, as well as bar scanners, where instead of just signing them in and entering them all manually, it will automatically say, we're here, and start calculating their pay for jury service. That's the only adjustment I have, except to move some funds around from my move money into my jury, which the increase of mailing out and postage due when we call our 10,000 jurors coming up shortly. Very small budget. Any questions? Oh.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, just point out Lisa's budget is within Fund 2180, and it's specifically on, I guess it would be a fourth page of her presentation, and it says Admin 1520 at the top. This is her budget.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. It's kind of confusing because you're within that overall fund, but this is her operational budget. It is, like she said, it's pretty status quo other than the few items, the laptop requests and the increase in printing for the jury mailers, and then the decrease in office supplies. That was just a forecasting thing that over time you just haven't had to utilize that much office supplies. Yes, and then just so you know, these will be on anything new will be on that new request form.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner, go ahead.
Clerk of Court Callio, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thanks. Yeah, very straightforward and very status quo. Thank you so much for that. I'm just curious about your staffing level. It seems to be stable right now, and we have the most recent addition was the standing master and the work around that. So all of the courts, the standing master plus the 4 district courts, you and your staff support, and then all the activities that you do. Just since we have you here, it's an opportunity maybe just to talk about that a little bit and how you staff all that, and then some of the other things that you do in your office, because a lot of the public may not know, but you guys have a lot of stuff going on in there. So just give you an opportunity to tell us about it.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, we are a staff of 16. We are down one person at the moment in the process of recruiting, and we will be losing one more person to go back to graduate school in Canada, probably in August, which is super sad. But staff of 16, one elected official, 6 frontline clerks who answer all the questions from the public, file in all their documents, 1 jury clerk who processes 10,000 jury summonses going out every year and all the questionnaires coming back, pulling all the juries for the judges, which in March we pulled 10. 5 of them went, 5 of them got called off, but that's still a massive amount of man hours to do that. And I think we have probably more than 1 jury trial a month or a week per month. It just averages sometimes 45 to 60 jury trials a year. Our standing master made that possible by taking on cases that the judges, agreed parenting plans or orders of protection, things that took time away from actually having jury trials. We have 7 clerks that man the courtrooms, 5 that are with the 4 judges and the standing masters, and then 2 that are backup. One goes on vacation, this person goes in the courtroom. So we always have coverage in the courtrooms. We have a supervisor who supervises all the employees under me and does all the bill pays, all the ordering, she has a massive amount of work to do. What else? Sorry. Did I get them all 16?
Mr. Chair, some of the services, the walk-in stuff that you guys do, I mean, it's a lot of.
Okay, so we open an average of 5,200 cases a year. They are 17 different types. We've got civil, criminal, domestic relations, orders of protection, juveniles, adoptions, probates, guardianships, search warrants and investigative subpoenas, and an average of 600 marriage licenses a year that we issue. So that's a lot. Of those 5,200 cases, we process about 77,000 documents, paper and electronic.
And then, Mr. Chair, and then you organize and store those as well.
Correct. Actually, we do not store anymore, except the things that we are statutorily required to, which is original wills, bonds. I think that's all we're statutorily required to keep the paper.
Yeah, not on site, but you have to.
Correct. Yes, digitally stored.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. They're very busy, is my point, Mr. Chair.
Very busy.
Great job. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just have a question that doesn't have anything to do with your numbers here, I think. Recently, I had on my trusty cell phone a notice of demand for jury service, and there was one for Lincoln County, and I thought there was one for Lewis and Clark County. Is that the way you give notice of jury service?
We do not give notice via text.
No, this was on a Facebook thing.
That's the sheriff's department. We are obligated to send out the notice at the beginning of the jury term that says you're on the term from September 1st to August 31st. We give you a QR code. You can either fill out your questionnaire online, or you can ask for paper, or you can come in. We give you all that information to give us your questionnaire. When we pull for a jury, we pull about anywhere from 80 to 120 jurors for a trial. We give them 3 weeks notice to either fill out their questionnaire if they haven't already, but then we call or email and say, you haven't given us your questionnaire yet or answered to your qualifications to serve as a juror. Of that list, the people that do not respond, we send to the sheriff's office, and then they have the way they're obligated to serve the jurors that haven't responded to their qualifications.
So, what is this thing on Facebook a phony?
It is not a phony. Sorry, Chair, Commissioner. It is not phony. It is the way that the sheriff's office, instead of going door to door, which again is many hours on deputies.
So that answers my question. It was a legitimate post.
Correct.
Oh, thank you.
It sounds like going digital has saved you a lot of storage area.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, it has saved us a lot of storage. We do, however, have a basement full of paper files that need to be digitally scanned into our system, an attic full of books that we're hoping will go to a secured storage area that's climate controlled that will keep them from degrading any further. But yes, the digital paperless e-filing has gotten rid of a lot of our files.
The work that you do, it just seems like you're awfully efficient, and there's a lot of emotion tied with many of the things that you do, and I just think it's wonderful. It looks to me like you're running an efficient, cost-efficient operation, trying to do the right thing.
Mr. Chair, thank you. We do our best not to spend all the money you give us. We just hope you continue to give it in case we do need it.
All right. Any other questions? I think we've got it covered. Thank you. All right. I guess our next meeting is not coming. Next one's not coming back until 1 o'clock. This would give us a little bit of a longer lunch break. Is there anything that you'd like to add before we take a break?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. Frank, anything? Well, why don't we put it on pause until 1 o'clock? If that works for you. All right. Yeah. All right. It is 1 o'clock. And we're back here. Start up again. We're going to hear the report on the fairgrounds right off the bat.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Kevin Tenney. I'm the manager of the Lewis and Clark County Fairgrounds. I am here to present our fiscal year 27 budget for the fairgrounds. The narrative will outline proposed changes to 27 and highlight any areas of concern or interest. As far as personnel is concerned, no changes will happen. Our personnel numbers are myself, an accounting tech, a 3/4 time administrative assistant, and 5 full-time maintenance workers. Our general operations budget, the expenses for FY27 have decreased by $190,326. That the proposed expenses will be $1,263,525. Primarily, the reason behind the decrease in expenses is for the past few years, we've been doing a lot of concerts and special events for the fairgrounds that, I guess the easiest way to say it is they're not getting the support from the people from Helena. We're not getting the attendance, and we're losing money on most of the concerts we do. Stampede and Fair concerts generally do pretty good, make us some money. And a few sporadic ones have done it, but the last few have not done well for us. So we will take a hiatus from concerts. That's not to say we're going to stand around and not do other events. We're going to just do events that don't cost as much money as say a music concert does. So that is the main reason in the decrease in expenses. Projected revenue for general operations will be $1,209,419. Facility rental revenues are predicted to stay the same, being we're pretty much full year round. It's hard to generate much more revenue. We will be increasing our fee schedule. However, most of the contracts for next fiscal year are already signed, so there won't be any major changes. As far as Stampede and Fair, projected revenue for FY27 is $1,039,300, a decrease of $6,500. The decrease is just based off what we did last year. I wanted to be a little more realistic in my projections. So it should be around what we were last year, but I'll obviously hoping for better.
Budgeted expenses for FY27 are $869,305. That reflects a decrease of $34,600 due to the cost of our contracts being a little lower for a lot of our contracted acts. The budget reflects a $169,995 net income for Stampede and Fair. Capital replacement for FY27 is $46,560. Basically, we won't be replacing much as far as equipment other than the forklift. We always budget for arena panels and gates and tables and chairs. Overall, the fiscal year 27 budget would leave the fairgrounds with a surplus of $65,889. The Lewis and Clark County Fairgrounds Advisory Board and staff recommend the approval of the budget as presented.
You know, it seems like you've got something going on at almost every weekend at the fairgrounds.
We really do. Summer slows down a little bit, but even June we're booked every weekend. July we have a couple off weeks before fair, and everything picks up again in August. The only weekends we really have available down there is more likely due to like a holiday, Veterans Day. People travel, so people don't want to put on events. But other than that, we're stacked pretty full for events.
Your prices are. I imagine you kind of checked around other fairgrounds, and I imagine you're trying to stay pretty competitive.
Yeah, I believe we're very competitive, and like I mentioned, we will be doing an increase. We usually do about a 2% increase on pretty much all of our facilities. We might look a little bit more than that, and looking at other fairgrounds and their costs, we're still probably below most fairgrounds for comparable facilities. And we like to get a little close to the same as everybody, but not to the point where it affects other renters and what they've paid in the past.
I was out and wandered around that last gun show, and I was just amazed at how many people showed up.
Oh yes, there's a lot of people there for the dwarf wrestling on Friday night too.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
Other
Mr. Chair.
question?
Yeah, Mr. Finney.
Commissioner Hunthausen.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, no, I totally understand the concert thing, but that doesn't mean that an outside promoter that might say, "Hey, I want to put on a concert," and could work with you for the venue, right?
That would be my ultimate dream. Is that's all the concerts we put on were from an outside.
So that's still possible.
It is. Our facility just doesn't work well because we don't have production. So there's a lot of production costs that we incur as well. So when we don't have that for them to use, then they also have to pay for that, and
right.
And we don't have the reserve seating and all that stuff in the exhibit hall. So, I mean, it's possible, and they do happen occasionally, but not as much as I would prefer.
And then, thank you. And then just two other ones, because I'm just trying to think if I were home watching what I might want to ask. People are probably curious about post-fire, how that's coming, what the plan is, and then also the playground.
So, excuse me, the post-fire, all equipment's been replaced. We're set there. We were budgeting some funds to replace that building. However, we have maintenance staff and myself, we've had Northwestern Energy, Eagle Electric look at what we've called Exhibit Building 1, which is the building that was directly west of the building that burned down. We believe once we clear it out of the junk that's been sitting there for 50 years, that building will suffice. We'll have to put some repair into it. We'll have to fix the roof, fix the hole that was generated during that fire. The electrical, we're told, looks good. Northwestern Energy has got power to that building again because it was lost from the fire. So it will be able to store all of our equipment minus the man lift, which we'll store in the indoor multipurpose building, the indoor arena. And there'll still be room to build a shop for our guys to have a work area and stuff. So overall, that'll save us quite a bit of money not having to replace that building, and that one should work out for us.
Great. That's good news.
Yeah, and we're going to put make it a little prettier, put a coat of paint on it and fix the roof and make it so it's pretty unsightly right now, but
Yeah.
We'll make it look a little nicer.
Great. And then the playground?
Playground, we are still waiting on the Fish, Wildlife and Parks grant, the large grant. I know we were hoping April it would have been approved. However, there was some historical questions brought in on some of the old equipment, which has slowed the process down. So I actually talked to Ann a week or two ago, and she's hoping we'll hear something pretty soon. We have all the matching funds now, and so we're looking in pretty good shape once that comes through. I just don't think it's going to happen before fair this year, like my original hope was.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
You bet. Commissioner Payne.
Better turn this on. I've really enjoyed serving on the fair board this year and getting to know more about what's going on out there. And because I serve on that board, I was also the one that got a phone call from a young woman who was working out there, and she was concerned about the law enforcement, that there were people creeping around through the bushes and scaring her, and there were people spinning brodies in the... So has that concern been addressed to your satisfaction? Do I need to, continue kicking on the door of the police department or anything?
Thanks for the question, Commissioner. I believe your phone call originally is what sparked it a little more than my phone calls had made. But I believe that there is a heavier presence. I mean, they're not down there all the time, but there's a heavier presence. Few more tickets are being written now, other than just a slap on the wrist and tell them not to do it again. And we haven't seen the issues as much as we have. There's always going to be some. I mean, there's no way of stopping it unless you have someone there 24/7, but it has dramatically gone down.
Okay, I'm glad. The other part, Andy probably doesn't know, but I've been working to get my friends at Kiwanis to come up with some money to fund an irrigation system for that playground, and I haven't heard anything. Have you?
Yeah, Mark. They reached out to Mark Menke, who's the president of our board, and we're providing him a letter. And it sounds like we'll be securing those funds. So, just if we need anything, I'm just going to call you and ask you to make a phone call.
Or Tom. Tom's a member of that same Kiwanis club. So good. I'm glad to know that I could lend a hand. Thank you, Kevin. That is it's an amazing operation out there. I'm so impressed with how it is run efficiently and in a business-like manner. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Really like that upgrade on Silsby and different, all the new pavement out there that we accomplished. I think that was great.
Yeah, it's amazing. I know the neighbors like that, keeps the dust down. And they're actually right now, they're doing the seal coat on all the old blacktops. So by tomorrow, it'll all look brand new down there.
That looks great. Good. Anything else, commissioners? You like? Well, we just really appreciate the great job that you do in managing that facility. And it's fun to watch at the fair board meetings, to watch the people that come from different walks of life around the community, and they take a real interest in what's going on out there, and I think it's good. We're always looking for folks to donate time to help out from here and there.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, if anybody happens to be listening, we'd encourage them to get a hold of us, and we'll make sure they get an opportunity to volunteer their time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Well, that was great. Now, I think our next opportunity, maybe we should wait just a few minutes because we publicly noticed the that the report on the county attorney be at 1:30. So we'll probably wait just a few minutes to start up. All right.
Maybe Kevin could come up and tell us stories of his adventures in the courtroom.
Roger, do you have anything else that might be of interest?
Mr. Chair, thank you. No, since we did put these items time certain on the agenda, though, it's probably appropriate to wait for the time. Thank you.
You bet. All right.
So is Nico really in Ireland? We're obviously paying him too much.
We will reconvene the meeting of the Lewis and Clark County Commission Tuesday, May 22nd, 2026. Our next budget presentation is from our county attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Payne and Commissioner Hunthausen, thank you for the opportunity to come to you today and tell you a little bit about our budget requests and also just some updates on overall last year from our office. I wanted to start with I know you have a packet in front of you. There's a budget summary, which is one page. There's two different colors that are highlighted on there. So just wanted to recognize we lost an employee last year, RJ McNeil, who had been with the county for 25 years, I believe, as our court services officer. And so that was a big loss because he was a beloved employee and a good friend and colleague to many of us. And he ran the court services office for that long. And so he did a lot of tracking of community service hours, getting people out in the, doing their anger management, behavioral health issues and hours and tracking all that. So he was known through a lot of the juveniles in our community as a really fine man. So we lost him last year. So I just want to recognize him today. We've had somebody, Michaela Henson, who's been an employee of ours for about 2 years. She had stepped up in a temporary position to fill that. I know some of you, I think Mr. Chair and Commissioner Hunthausen, I believe you heard her present, I think it was last week with regard to some of that services there. So we've had our two newest attorney positions are Mr. Murphy here to my left, who you've all met through your work with, obviously on the commission. We hired our last criminal attorney, our last open position, Taryn Wellman. She was hired in February. So we're grateful to have, and I hate to even say it out loud, but we're in a spot where we're not saying we have any open positions. We had a new employee start today at our front desk, Keegan Mays. So we're really happy to have him. So knock on wood that we can maintain a full staff, but thanks to, I know Ms. Spangler and the HR staff, Carrie DeRozier, they really helped us out with getting interviews and sorting through applications. So I want to appreciate their efforts. In regards to specific budget requests, basically the only changes that we're asking for is a decrease in $500 in our repair and maintenance for computer equipment, and then an increase in $500 for our travel budget. And that's just a reflection of, I think all of our buckets of money throughout our whole budget were well under or within. And I think the only adjustment there is the travel, and the justification for that increase. The $500 increase is just that the cost of travel for some of our trainings has gone up just over time. So, and that's just related to the mandatory training that some of our attorneys have to go to each year for what's called CLE, continuing legal education. We have had several attorneys attend trainings, but I often require that they seek out scholarships or some sort of sponsorship to attend those. And thankfully, we've been able to do some out of state training that are paid for by a separate entity. So I think that helps get us exposure to different issues outside of Montana that affect our jurisdiction. We had some people from this area that went down to Dallas, Texas for a domestic violence strangulation specific training. So that was a week long, and that was sponsored by the host entity. And so it was a nationwide. They get a lot of people. So I know there's some law enforcement from the Helena Police Department, the Sheriff's Office that went down to that. So those are essentially the only minor adjustments that we're asking for. The other point I wanted to just relay to you is this increased amount of contract services, and that is in part because of expected but unknown amounts of costs that are associated with our criminal and civil cases. So we do contract services on our civil cases. You are familiar with Alan McCormick, who's helped the county out on certain issues. Then on the criminal side, we oftentimes hire experts to do criminal work. And I just know the amount they're requesting is that a reflection of being on the safe side. We did not use that amount last year, but are anticipating some of these costs. They're more. I just don't want to be in a position where we're coming back to try to request more after the fact. So I know the commissioner, Mr. Chair, it was approved last year, so we would ask that similar request this year. A couple other things I want to just note that we have in office law enforcement liaison. So we have a detective from the police department and a detective from the sheriff's office that essentially spend most of their week in our office, and that helps streamline some of our cases that we're pursuing through prosecution. And that's been going on well before I came to the office. Leo, my predecessor, Leo Gallagher, had that in place, and that I can't tell you how much that helps making sure our cases are being appropriately handled. And if you go around the state, we're sort of the leader in that. I think there's a lot of jurisdictions that look and say, I can't believe you guys have that in place, and really wishing they had that. So when we go meet with our counterparts in other counties, I always remind them this could be an option for their office to help with their cases. So we in some ways lead by example in that respect. The other thing I wanted to continue to mention is our Child Advocacy Center. That's our local, it's through AWARE. Part of our contract services is in our budget to help them. They do forensic interviews of people involved, primarily children involved in sexual or physical abuse cases. They are an integral part of those cases to make sure that either a case is clarified and make sure that the kid's safe at home, or if there is a concern for abuse, that it's pursued in an appropriate manner. And so Paula Sams is the director down there. I just can't tell you how important that role is and how lucky we are to have a child advocate. We call it CAC is the terminology that's referred to regularly. We're just really lucky to have a great focal point in our community. So part of our budget is just giving them some money for their resources. I think our CIP moved up a little bit this year. I think that's a request across the board. So that's sort of the general summary of our requests. And I'm happy to say that we are in large part just within what our budget was last year and actually under. And I hope to continue to do that moving forward this year. But just on some of these buckets, we want to make sure that we have requested an adequate amount to make sure we don't go in the red, because I know you're very cautious of that. And then I will ask, I have some couple of slides that I've done the last couple of years. I think it's helpful with a visual in front of you. So I'm going to put that up on the computer to help you understand where our staffing is and just our workload, so you just understand the impact that we have on our community. Okay, this is just, I know each of you are aware of our services, but just as a highlight, because I know the way our budget request for outlining it to present to you was a little bit modified from last year, and is like, what role do we play for the community? What service are we providing? So in large part, we have a criminal realm where we handle all the felonies and all the what are called petitions to revoke. That's if somebody's on supervision and there's an allegation that they're not doing their supervision. So we handle all those for the city and the county. We handle all the misdemeanor cases in the county, and then we handle all youth court jurisdiction cases in the whole county. And that's just in large part by statute. And so our criminal attorneys are very busy. So our felony criminal attorneys handle between a current caseload somewhere between 70 and 110 active cases. That's active felony cases. So there's a lot. And then our justice court, there's our misdemeanor attorneys. They're handling hundreds of active misdemeanor cases. So we have a lot of interaction with the public, a lot of interaction with families or people impacted by crime. And that's on a daily basis. And the unfortunate part is that not only has something happened to somebody, and we want to make sure that we're responding to their needs and listening to make sure we're pursuing a case in the right manner, that it's unpredictable. We can't predict how many cases might come in today, tomorrow, next month, something that might be simple or complicated. So that's just the nature of the service that we're providing, the unpredictability. Civil commitments, I guess their civil division and our Chief Deputy Nico Hash, as you know, and then Mary Berry's our Chief Criminal. In our civil realm, we're dealing with mental commitments. That's if somebody's in a situation where they have a mental health crisis and they need to be committed to our state hospital or some other facility. Those are unpredictable. Mr. Murphy here handles those quite frequently for our office. We have what are referred to as DN proceedings, abuse and neglect proceedings. That's when we have an attorney specifically dedicated to that. Her name is Christine Zazer. She handles all the cases where there's a concern for a child being in a home, and the courts need to intervene to see if a child needs to be removed temporarily or if parental rights need to be terminated. And there's all sorts of issues. And this is a whole separate from the criminal world. This is a whole separate proceeding. We handle guardianships, conservatorships. Obviously, as you know, the county gets sued on occasion, if not more frequently than we'd like. I'm also the public administrator. We provide legal advice to the county department, so those come in on a regular basis from all sorts of agencies within the county. We handle coroner's inquests. That's if somebody dies, if they're in some sort of custodial, if they're in jail, or if somebody is encountered police and there's somebody dies, we handle those inquests. I'm on a number of boards and task forces. I know each of you. I know we crisscross. There's a meeting this afternoon for our CJCC. So I'm proud to be a part of those public boards and task forces to make sure that we're all working together collaboratively. So I just wanted some of the numbers. I think it's helpful to see on a graph. I've done this before. So this is just the felony caseload and petitions to revoke PTRs, as I mentioned. So where filings are down a little bit last year, the factors, I think it's a little bit difficult to say why they're a little bit down. We anticipate right now that they're probably going to go up again. So we're running between, bless you, Commissioner Payne, 400. So those are new cases that are coming in per year. Now you have to remember that when a felony case initiates, if a case is charged today, it's likely not to resolve for maybe a year. Sometimes it might not go to trial for a year and a half or even 2 years. So when we're counting these cases, they're not done within a couple of months. That's just because of the caseload. Someone has a right to attorney and the right to review discovery, and we try to figure out what's the right resolution. So it's busy. This is jury trials. This is just felony jury trials. We had the exact number of last year. So that's when we've pulled, our jury trials get pulled. There's about somewhere between 80 and 120 people from the community that get pulled in as a possible juror. So the asterisk up there is this last year, 30 jury trials went forward. That means the jury trial started and it went through to some sort of verdict. Okay. Now there were 75 that were actually pulled, which means the Clerk of Court pulled email, or they sent out mailings to these potential jurors. Everyone was notified, but something happened prior to the start date of the jury. It could be that the person didn't show up. It could be that there was a resolution. It could be that there's some issue came up where someone got a new attorney. So there's a lot of work and resource that goes into preparing for trial that could take weeks, if not months. So even though we only had 30 jury trials is a lot, but the preparation that goes into all those 75 is substantial. So just because it didn't go to trial, it doesn't mean the case wasn't being worked by the courts and by our office and their, if they have an attorney representing them. This year we anticipate could be 40, could be more, could be a little bit less, but we've seen an increase in trials over the last couple of years. This is the Justice Court case proceedings. I know you'll hear from the Justice Court, Judge Piskalich, Judge Swingley. Their citations and complaints are substantial as well, and there's a lot of people going that are showing up in justice court. So there's a very public facing work. So I just want to emphasize the focus of our office is sort of multifaceted, but in large part, we're trying to seek justice for people in the community. We want to keep our kids safe and our families safe. We're helping vulnerable populations, whether it's a mental health commitment or whether it's a DN proceeding or whether it's working with an agency about what's the right way to proceed with a difficult circumstance. And then ensuring that our office is responsive to legal advice requests. So those are the numbers. And
Certainly. Go ahead.
Kevin, I'm looking at citations and complaints. Just confirm whether or not I'm understanding this correctly. The complaints are between citizens and the citations are from the county to citizens. Is that, or what's the difference between a complaint and a citation?
yeah, good question, Commissioner Payne. So citations, so if somebody is down, if there's an altercation and somebody assaults somebody else, an officer could write a citation to the person. So they write a citation. That citation is then filed in justice court. So that's one way to commence a proceeding in justice court is through a citation from a law enforcement officer. A complaint is something that our office files. So we receive an affidavit from an officer saying there's a belief and probable cause that somebody committed a certain offense, and that comes from our office, and we file it in justice court. So it initiates, in some ways, a different way to initiate a proceeding in front of justice court.
I'm so glad I asked. Thank you.
You bet. I know there was a request to have a budget narrative, and I think that's the third portion of the packet. And I appreciated this. I think it was a good way to notate what our office is doing and the things that we want to look forward to. How do we continue to serve the public in the right way? And so, I imagine you've already gone through some of this, if not all of it. And so the overview, I think I've just given you an overview about what the services that our office provides. Accomplishments. I wish I could go through and highlight all the small number of things that happen each day that we're doing to advocate for people in the community. And that goes from our victim witness advocates in our office to our attorneys trying to resolve a case in the right way, or not pursuing a case that doesn't seem viable, or our office trying to help somebody navigate a difficult, what can be a confusing legal system. So we have 31 people in our office, and I'm proud to say that every one of those people show up and they care about the work, and I think they see value in what our office does. So we have a lot of work, and there's a lot of attention paid and a lot of people that care about it. So I just can't emphasize that enough. It's certainly not just me. It's all the people that work in our office. So the top concerns that I have moving forward, and as I mentioned, is this very difficult and ill-defined and unpredictability of case and fluctuations. We just cannot predict what might happen in the future. So that's a difficulty. Our office is continually seeing sexual and domestic violence more than you probably want to recognize. The allegations against kids and adults would be just shocking to you if you saw what our office sees every day. Drug and human trafficking is a growing concern, and fraud and embezzlement. We've had cases, I could list cases for each of those categories of crime that we're seeing on a regular basis. We've been talking about mental health and substance abuse for years. And we haven't cracked the code necessarily, but our office is certainly willing and able to continue to participate in that conversation about how we make sure those people are getting the services they need, but also not putting themselves or others at risk. We have seen some really concerning instances of youth and gun violence. And sometimes in certain areas where we see more repetitive crime. So that's a concern. probably across the county, just to make sure that we're retaining good employees, and how do we maintain that longevity of people like RJ McNeil and others who stick around and feel valued by the county. So that's, some of that is pay, and I know we appreciate if the commissioners, the board is considering that COLA increase this year. That's something that I think there's some level of appreciation, just to know that that's coming down the pipe. Long-term planning, I sort of saw this twofold: our community and our office. Our community is, these ways to engage to try to minimize or lower recidivism and impact crime levels. We can't stop people from making causing harm to others, but we can certainly respond to it in a way that might be helpful. I think it's important that we promote integrity and trust in government. I think we've had a lot of rhetoric around people not trusting the government, and I think it's really important that with the actions that we take each day is reflective of that, and that we have some trust in what our Lewis and Clark County does, and I think we can be leaders in that. With our offices, our office in and of itself, if we continue to see increase in workload, at some point perhaps I'd be coming to you to asking for an additional employee, but I don't see that as the highest priority right now. I do think we might need at some point some sort of office manager and maybe additional civil and criminal staff, just to make sure we're handling our office needs appropriately. I mentioned competitive pay. I think the state has competitive pay, and so we don't want to lose a good person to just because they pay a little bit more. So I know the board is well aware of that. The other thing I wanted to note is just evolving technology. I think everyone's talking about AI and how that's going to impact the workforce. I don't know with certainty right now how that's going to impact our world, but it certainly is going to. And so I want to be aware of how we can be efficient and use technology in the right way and the smart way, but not compromise any of the work that we're doing. But I think that's going to be something we're going to continue to talk about. I know in the private sector that's being talked about readily, and I don't want to be behind the eight ball if we don't start talking about it now. So I'm reaching out to other counties to see if there's things that they're instituting now. Some of that, Chat GPT and all these AI platforms that people use, we have to be real careful about how we use that because of the legal work that we do and the confidentiality. But I think that's just going to be something we'll continue to talk about. So that's my presentation. If Mr. Chair, if there's any questions, I'm certainly will do my best to answer them for you.
We're hearing a lot about some of the work back and forth with other departments like criminal justice services. And can you talk a little bit about how that's affected your workload and what kind of a difference that's made, if it has?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And are you talking about criminal justice services as far as pretrial services?
Right.
Okay. So our overlap with criminal justice services in that world is that if somebody has been charged with a criminal offense and during the pendency of their criminal case, if a judge orders them to pretrial services, then we rely upon pretrial services to make sure that the person is following along with what the court orders. So some of the conditions that might come into play is they have to check in at pretrial services once a week. They have to do 2 times a week drug testing. It might be that they have to show up to all their court hearings. There could be a number of conditions that are imposed. So we rely upon pretrial services to notify us as the prosecutor and their attorney if they're not following a court order. And so that's what we expect, is that if someone's not following a court order, that the court should be notified.
Do you find any difference in workload because of having those services available?
As far as, Mr. Chair, the effect of our workload, not necessarily, because our role is essentially to review investigations and proceed with criminal cases when it's appropriate. So that's our lane, and I think they're a counterpart to making sure that somebody is showing up to hearings and making sure that we can proceed to some sort of resolution at the end. So in some ways, it's a more of a partner as opposed to minimizing the work.
Then another question, our public health department is very interested in having a facility like the Journey Home reopened, and would that have any effect in any of the work that you do?
Mr. Chair, absolutely. If there was a place, I know there's been funding cuts at the state level and in the federal level that have impacted local services. This has been a number of years. I know the board is well aware of that. If we had a local safe option for somebody, usually it's someone in a mental health crisis, that they have a place to go other than the ER or the state hospital. And the issue is if somebody's in a mental health crisis at our local emergency room, right now there's been a lag in getting them to the state hospital because of their backlog. So somebody might otherwise be in the ER for much longer than anybody would want them to be. Or if they have a criminal offense and they're in jail because of a criminal proceeding, if there was some other alternative location. So, but I know that has to be safe, adequately staffed. It has to be a place that's 24/7 services. Or if it ends up being open to some portion of a day where someone can go and make sure it's a safe place for them. So I guess the bottom line is yes, that would be helpful for our work.
Thank you. Other questions?
Mr. Chair, I could.
Commissioner
Johnny,
Hanhouse.
thank you for being here. Appreciate it. It's great. It's always great to hear you and see you and all of that. I think we talked about this. You covered most of it, but I just wanted to thank you as well for the partnerships and all. I mean, you just described how busy you are and how much stuff that your team has on their plates, and yet your willingness to work with criminal justice services and all the things that come down the line, whether it's, hey, let's try this, let's try that, let's look at ways the system can be more efficient or better. I just appreciate your willingness to step in and do that, because you don't have to. And so, but the more we work as a team, and the judges have really engaged, which is great. And the more we do that together, the better ultimately our system can be in the end, I think. And ultimately maybe save you time and money and effort along the way. So I just wanted to appreciate that willingness to work with our team, because you see some communities that they're what do we call it, our criminal justice leadership team that we have, that I'm not on right now, CJCC, that is not as functional in a lot of communities. And so I'm just grateful that we have people that'll sit down and talk with each other. And sometimes the answer is I can't do that. But being in the same room and working toward some of those same goals of improving our system, I'm just grateful. So thank you for that. And then I was going to ask about, it's Michaela, right? That's now doing the criminals office.
We refer to it as court services officer.
Court services officer. Okay. Yeah. So she seemed great in her presentation to the city county work session, and I was just wondering about that. It says temporary, but is she considering that being ongoing, or was she in another role over the last couple of years?
She was.
Okay.
Ms. Henson was initially hired as a part-time employee when we had Kathy Salo, who was our longtime front desk person. When she stepped back to halftime, we filled in with Michaela. So Michaela's played some different roles in our office. So she is in a 12-month temporary position, which is per county policy. It's a temporary. So at some point we will open that up as an open position. But she stepped up and is willing to learn it and make it make it understandable to her, so it would better serve the partners who were involved.
Yeah, seemed like she was jumping in with both feet.
Yeah,
did a nice job. So, anyway, thank you very much. It's great to have you here today. I really appreciate you being willing to come and
thank you,
share with us your world. So
Any other? When is it that I noticed
Tom?
when I first started on the commission? Excuse me. Go ahead.
I do have one question.
Okay, go ahead.
And it may seem a little facetious, but I'm very concerned. Operations and maintenance, health club dues. It's budgeted for $25, and it appears like nobody uses it except maybe $22 here and $25 there. Are you not insisting on people using the gym? Are you out of shape? What? Why should this even be on the budget if it's not going to be used?
Well, Commissioner Payne, we've requested that consistently, so it's available to those who request. So we've had a couple of new people have hired, and if they opt in for that, I think we're in open enrollment as well right now, where I think people can opt in for that and get a little bit of money back. I can't say why people haven't jumped into that. I think that's probably across the county.
It's because you're too busy. You're working all the time.
Yeah.
That's the right answer.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's certainly an incentive. I wish it was used more, but that's up to the individual, obviously.
Yes. Okay. That was all.
Mr. Chair, yeah, that is a line item in all the budgets. It's part of our wellness program.
I didn't know.
Yeah. So just to clarify that.
Oh, thank you. You've been here a while, haven't you?
It's good to have that institutional knowledge
Yeah.
from time to time. I wanted to ask, when I first got on the commission, there was concern that the computer system in the county attorney's office and the computer system in the sheriff's office and different ones didn't speak well to each other. Has that been improved at all?
Mr. Chair, I recall that long conversation about how do we make these systems talk. We have, things are much more efficient than they've been. I think we have I think it was 2022, our office started using what's called PBK or Carpel. It's a case management system. And that's been extremely helpful in managing and monitoring our cases. And so with the electronic, I know the sheriff's office and the Helena Police Department have a new electronic database system for their reports. And so they're able to send those with more ease. There was a lot of paper and folders and things that took up a lot of room in our office. But now, because most of it's electronic, we're able to receive that information much more efficiently. Now, are the systems perfect? No. We're always in discussion about how we can make it more efficient or talk to one another, but it's in a much better position than it was.
Good. A little progress has been made anyway.
Yes,
That's good.
That's correct.
All right. It just made sense. When it first came up, I thought, well, how can that be? And they don't talk to each other, and it's the same county organization. So
Yeah,
I'm glad that's been improved.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, I will say across the country, there's various programs and case management systems that there's always a new pitch about what a new service can provide. And so I can't tell you how many emails I get per week from businesses from different areas saying, hey, you should switch over to this one. But we feel pretty comfortable with what we have at this point.
Good. All right. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I was just going to let County Attorney know that there is, I think, $100,000 set aside for market surveys again this year or this next year. So trying to keep up through HR to study the market and the jobs and the pay levels, make sure that we're trying to be as competitive as we can. I know that that's a concern for you, and it's hard to keep good employees if we're not competitive. So we're trying to do that. We're trying to invest in that and make sure that we study the market.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if I can make one last note, I believe it was last year, there was a reworking of some of the positions because of a market grade analysis. And so I know that it affected a couple of our employees. And so I really appreciate that, because you have some people that have been there a long time and they've sort of capped out. And so that was a little bit of a bump, and that was a little bit of recognition to them being a long-term employee. So I want to thank you for that.
Good. All right. Anything else? Well, I just really appreciate the opportunity. It seems like your office is always helping us out. They're available for questions that we have, that trying to stay within the proper lines and doing things right. So the folks that you have assigned to help us out have been very helpful to me personally and in my job here. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for letting me know.
Anything else? Well, I think we've arrived at the end of our agenda then for today's budget discussions, and we always try to make it a possible for people who might have something public to say from the public. So I'm going to make that offer. I don't see anybody actually here, but we'll publicly make the offer that if anyone has something that's under the purview of the county commission, but not on today's agenda, if they'd like to make a comment or bring us up to date on something that concerns them, we'd like we ask for public comment. Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we're adjourned.